Hi and welcome to Code Review. We're going to do something a little bit different here and actually use video, and we're going to try and do different things, maybe some other mini interviews as we do the show, but for now we're just going to kind of start off small and talk about what's happened in the last week or two, which is really kind of since Google I/O. So one of the things is we finally got the videos and the slides all up online, so you can go through, and if you missed anything on any of the topics, obviously Google topics like GWT and Gears and Open Social and Android, there's tons of content available for you there, best practices on App Engine, so really interesting stuff. But also some other things, like one of the nice little gems that I was really excited to see was Steve Yegi talking about server-side JavaScript and kind of his thoughts on dynamic languages. He's just an entertaining speaker, so it's kind of fun to see what's going on. But there's no rest for the wicked for us. We're actually starting these developer days, which are already kicked off in Asia and now is going to Latin America. So I'm actually going to be flying down to Brazil, Mexico City, along with a bunch of other Googlers and some locals down there to talk more about these topics. So if you're in Sao Paulo, Mexico City, I really hope that I get to see you and you stop by. Now, Yahoo this week, and it was kind of Google back to front, and I was talking about Gears on the client side and App Engine on the back end. And I wrote this little app that's just a kind of a sample to show this history pattern, where in my address book I obviously change address as I move and phone numbers and things like that, how you can actually store that information. So you can go through and store that history and have a nice little slider mechanism to give people access to this old data. So originally it was a Gears app, and then I ported it over to App Engine to use that as an example. And it's out there now, a full code walkthrough, and the application is there for you to check out. So if you're interested, give that a shot. Also, our own Dick Wall and James Ward of Adobe got together to build this little app that uses Adobe Air, where you take a photo that you may have, and it sends it up to App Engine, and App Engine has this new image API, and you can do resizes and rotates and moves and things like that. But one of the kind of fun things in there is there's a method called I'm Feeling Lucky, and what that does is it kind of takes this algorithm and kind of does the right thing and tries to get the brightnesses and the levels correct. And so the app kind of sends it to the server, does that, gets back this new version of the image that you can then kind of compare to your original. And all of that source code is available in a nice little walkthrough from those guys too, which I found was pretty interesting. Then there's something else that a Googler actually did on his spare time. One of the limitations with App Engine is it's very HTTP based, but what if you want to process email? I personally find it frustrating when I'm on a site that sends me an email and the email comes from no reply at, and I have no way of kind of just hitting reply and interfacing back. So what Nick Johnson did is he set up a little interface that reads in emails and does HTTP post requests to your App Engine instance, where you can then gather the data about that email and do something for it. So it's just kind of a little experiment proof of concept, but it's something to think about as you build these apps, as you need something like that where at first you think, oh, there's no access, there's no way to do that. You can get creative to have workarounds to some of these problems. So that was pretty cool. SMTP to web.com is where that lives. Now, it's been a really fun week for web browsers, of course. We had the big hubbub around Firefox coming out, and download day, and setting up a distributed denial of service attack on their own servers, but they pulled it all off, and it looks like it's going to set a Guinness Book of Records for downloads. I definitely grabbed my fair share on that day. But they also talked a little bit about version 3.1 and how it's going to support all of the selectors in CSS3, and kind of interesting to see as they keep pushing and progressing the browser there. But there's actually been news across all of the browsers. So the IE team came out and talked about the different emulation strategies, and they added a new one where you can emulate version 7 from version 8 in different ways that make sense in Quirks mode as well as in strict mode. With Safari at WWDC, they kind of showcased the Safari 4 preview release that has interesting new things that'll be coming there. And then we have Opera, of course, with its 9.5 release, and again, another very lean, very fast browser And so kind of all of these browsers are out there pushing and making great strides, which obviously helps us a lot. In the standards, we have HTML5. It just got a new working draft. So Hixie and Dave Hyatt and the whole gang have been really busy there, and there's been an updated documentation on differences between HTML5 and 4, and really worth checking out. Every time I kind of go back and look at all of that, I can't wait to get access to this new lexical meaning of being able to do these really rich things, process meters, input type equals date, all of these things that we've kind of been craving for a long time. And we also see the germination of a new ACID, in this case ACID 4, set of tests that Hixie's going to start working on that it looks like are going to be aimed at kind of the look and feel side of things. ACID 3 was about the programmatic side. Now we're going to go back and be checking SVG and different look and feel in the actual rendering of the browser. Then with Gears, we actually released 0.3, which finally got out to all the people that are running Gears. We have auto updates that can keep people up to date. And the big feature that a lot of people have been craving for is the Firefox 3 compatibility. So obviously Firefox 3 came out, so the API was standardized, so we could release our plugin that works with that. But there's also a bunch of other things that are in there. The desktop API that we've seen for a while, now you'll be able to call that, and you're going to know that your users are going to have access to this, so you can set up different shortcuts on their desktop directly from JavaScript. And then there's subtle tweaks to the underlying APIs that allow you to do more things, including helping with the install experience and setting up your kind of custom flow with information on the application that you're actually dealing with, so you can have a little bit more control when a user comes who hasn't had Gears installed. You can be part of that flow in a really nice way now. There's also been a couple of new frameworks that are using Gears, and I think in an interesting way. Appcelerator is one that's particularly interesting. What they've done, instead of just kind of allowing you to use Gears and giving you a few hooks, they've kind of embedded it into their core, and when they do different eventing and different things with JavaScript, they automatically will just use Gears for you. So as a programmer, you don't even have to go ahead and start using Gears APIs. And we're seeing more of this where these frameworks are actually just kind of building it into their systems where it makes sense. And if you've got Gears installed, they can just go ahead and use that. But developers aren't having to go through and do that work themselves, and we're pretty excited about that. There's another tool called Frisione, I believe it's pronounced, and that's a whole development, testing, debugging environment for JavaScript. And that kind of in the same way embeds Gears and uses it where it makes sense when you're doing your different development and debugging tasks. Testing is a big part of this, and up on the testing blog we just had kind of an introductory part 1 post on testing Ajax applications. This is kind of one of the big hotspots is, as we go away from the traditional Web 1.0 type apps and we build richer apps, how do you actually test these? Testing UIs is hard, especially in the browser. And so it's great to see a series hopefully coming from the testing guys on how we test things at Google and different approaches that are out there that allow you to test your Ajax applications. On the map side, there's some fun things. There's a series of elections mashups with the new Flash API that came out for maps. We're seeing some great stuff like a driving simulator game where you can kind of drive along in Street View. That's pretty sexy. And we actually had the guys from 360 Cities come out, and they have a new visualization of their lovely panorama images with a Flash map embedded in the panorama. It's really exciting stuff. And they also, when we interview them, talk about all of the different APIs that they're using and how they do all of this panorama stuff. And it's pretty interesting, and there's a full set of not only an interview but a set of demos kind of showing off what they have. So if you're interested in that, check it out. Then in general, a few things to finish up. Kevin Marks was with me giving a couple of presentations in Boulder, and he was talking about how not to be viral, how viruses are actually bad things, and you don't want to be viral in your social apps because that means you're going in and you're kind of taking advantage. So what does that mean for you when you build your social apps? And he goes through biology and evolution and things like that, kind of talks about things that you can do that actually make sense with your application to make it organically grow nicely with users that are happy and enjoying the service, as opposed to trying to kind of do quick wins. And it's a really interesting blog post, and something you should check out in the show notes on this blog. Then we had a couple of new search APIs released. Custom search actually just has a new developer guide. It's one of those kind of little things that are out there that you don't realize how much you can customize and build a full search experience for your application and your site using Google products, using our API. So check that out. And then if you have the task of doing searches for patents and building something that needs to search for patents, and I feel sorry if you actually have to do that, we have a full Ajax API now that allows you to do that patent search. So you can go ahead and access our backend patent system through JavaScript and various other means. And then finally, there's this really cool visualization that I'll put at the end of this blog, which is showing the history of different open source projects by watching their commit messages. And the example that I'll show is Python, and you kind of see over time as people join the community, and it's really fascinating to see this, especially as it annotates when it gets really popular. And you just see this flood of people coming in. So it's kind of fun to see all these new visualizations come out. This is using the processing library, and it's really a good way to kind of see what's happening in open source. So fun week, a lot of stuff happening in the web. Hope you go check things out. Let us know when something interesting is happening, or if there's anything you need, and have a great weekend.